got our flight directors on and showing you're the master. Our airspeed here, I've got this set on the takeoff page to our V2 of 153. Okay, if you could go ahead and enter a center of gravity of, say, 21.0.
21.0?
Yeah, put that in the center of gravity and as a percentage. And the FMS is going to calculate a trim setting for us, 5.63. So if you look down here on the trim setting, what I'm going to get you to do is just push these two levers up on your control column to the full forward position and hold that for, say, 4 or 5 Mississippis until we get that trim indication of 5.63. That looks great to me. Okay. We've got our flaps 5 selected. I'm just going to jar those flaps into position. There we've got a 5 selected and 5 indicated. We'll do a before takeoff checklist to make sure all these things are in place. So I'm just going to give you a quick briefing here. So that's our speed we've got set. We've got an LNAV arm and a VNAV arm, so that's going to follow the Philadelphia 2 departure for us. That goes up to 5,000. We're going to need a clearance higher from ATC up to our final altitude of 13,000 feet eventually. And so as soon as we get rolling down the runway and we achieve V1 and VR for rotate, I'm going to get you to pull the control column back until we reach a 10-degree mark on our primary flight display here.
So that's that one.
That's the first 10-degree mark up, actually. And so the black dot and your black horizon bars are going to come up. There will be a magenta flight director crosshair that appears to give you guidance once we take off. Okay. So at about 400 feet, we're going to be able to, we'll rotate at 10 degrees. I'll take control for a moment and allow you to retract the gear when we attain positive rate. I'll give you back control. Above 400 feet, we'll be able to engage the autopilot, and that way we can observe how the aircraft levels off at 1,000 feet, picks up more airspeed, and gets us to safe flap retraction speed, indicated by a green arrow that will show on our primary flight display. And you'll see that shortly. Okay, so if you're ready to go, we'll just quickly do a before takeoff checklist and make sure that everything is in order. So as a challenge and response, so the before takeoff checklist calls for the auto brake. That's set to RTO, reject the takeoff. Our flight controls, I assume you checked those absolutely. We checked for left and right, up and down. We've got our auto throttle, which does tend to kick off. We've got that arm. So our V speeds, especially V2 of 153, we've got that set on our MCP mode control panel. Our flaps are, again, 5 selected, 5 indicated, green light. And our stab trim, we made sure we set a 5.63 on the trim. So our transponder is set to TARA, and that's our before takeoff checklist is complete.
Okay.
So air traffic control has given us takeoff clearance. So all of our lighting is on, and we're good to go. We'll stow the checklist away here. And if you're ready, and I'm ready, all you'll need to do is just advance the thrust levers forward a little bit, not to exceed 40% on the N1%. And all you got to do is press either one of these black toga buttons, and the auto throttle will take over. The thrust levers will come forward automatically, and you'll just have to shadow them. I'll call out your indications on the FMA, which is your flight mode annunciator, and you'll have to steer the aircraft with your rudder pedals left and right.
Okay.
The airspeed will come alive, and V1 and V rotate will slowly come down to the actual speed. I'll call for rotation. You'll pitch up to 10 degrees. We'll retract the gear and retract the flaps.
So I'm going to be focusing outside while we're rolling?
Absolutely. Your eyes are outside, steering the aircraft with your rudder pedals, left and right, to maintain center line. And my eyes are focused inside on the instrumentation, giving you cues when to rotate.
Okay, and that rotate is when I look down here?
Absolutely.
Okay.
At rotation, your eyes are going to transfer from outside to inside and focus on the flight director bars that will appear on the primary flight display.
I see, okay.
Excellent.
All right.
If you're ready, I'm ready. We have the takeoff clearance.
All right.
One hand on the throttle.
Let's go ahead.
Ready to go.
Advance it to about 40%.
Yes, sir. 40% roughly on the N1 indication.
Go Press that.
One click of the toga switch, now the auto throttle is taken over and it's coming up, and you'll just merely shadow that. And we've got enunciations, N1, heading select, and toga.
Okay.
So thrust is set.
Okay.
You notice your airspeed is live. There's 80 knots and thrust hold. And there's V1 and rotate.
Rotate.
You'll notice the white mark indicating a positive rate.
Positive rate, yeah.
And you call me for a gear up.
Gear up.
Well, actually, you know what? I'll take control and you can select the gear up.
All right.
I have control.
Okay. So pull this out and up.
Yes, sir. Excellent. We've changed the VNAV speed now. You have control.
I have control.
Excellent work. So you can now hand fly the airplane, and through 1,000 feet, you'll notice that the flight directors are commanding you to slowly pitch forward, and at any time you can engage the autopilot. And now we're looking for this indication it's safe to go from flaps 5 to flaps 1. So if you call for flaps 1 now.
So that's when the arrow points to the 1?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so
I'll have
flaps
control
1.
and you select flaps 1.
Okay, so I just bring this up.
Yes, sir.
And forward into the 1.
Yes, sir. Now you have control again.
I have control.
Now you notice now the trend indicator is pointing towards up. Now that the aircraft letting us know it's safe to retract flaps to the up position. I have control and select flaps up.
All right. There we go. Flaps up.
Very good. You have control.
I have control.
Now the aircraft is safely climbing through 2,800 feet up to 5,000. The flaps are rolling on their way up at a controlled speed of 250 knots. Now the flaps are up, and I will complete the after takeoff checklist for you.
Okay.
If you want to participate, I would encourage you to put the autopilot on with command.
Let's go ahead and do that.
Excellent.
Now hands off here.
You got it.
All right.
Okay, now if we don't set the mode control panel altitude, the MCP altitude higher, the aircraft's gonna level off at 5,000 feet. So ATC would come on the radio right about now and give us a clearance. So it would say altitude, flight sim, you're cleared to flight level, or sorry, to 13,000. So you go ahead and dial that up to 13,000.
Okay.
And if I could just get you to press the legs page here, I'm going to zoom out on your multi-function display, and ATC is going to simulate a clearance direct to Luigi. If you could select Luigi on that button beside, press the button beside Luigi, that dumps it in the scratch pad. Now you want to dump that on top to the magenta vector line. Go ahead and press that there. That's going to draw us an imaginary line to Luigi. You can go ahead and execute that. Now the aircraft in lateral mode, in LNAV, is going to take us there safely, and in VNAV with the autopilot on, and we'll carry on with the after takeoff checklist. So the after takeoff checklist pretty much just gets us to check that the engine bleeds are on, so the aircraft will pressurize on its own. The packs are in auto, so that the environmental controls are setting themselves accordingly. Our landing gear is up, and you can reach over and just put that to the off position. And what that does is that just depressurizes the extension and retraction systems. The auto brakes selector 2 off. And make sure that our flaps are up. No lights for the after takeoff checklist complete. There you go. We'll stow the takeoff, the checklist up here. So what we've done is we've taken off on the Philadelphia 2 departure. This is us on the moving map display here. And we basically go to the big map. It's pretty much showing us going directly to Luigi on the map here.
Oh yeah, I see Luigi right there.
Absolutely. So what's going to happen here, usually through about 10,000 feet, if we pull out our checklist, it's going to give us some guidance. So we can now turn off all the landing, runway, and taxi lights upstairs here. So I'll get you to just select every single one of those switches off. Excellent. And we won't be transitioning through 180, so we can leave our altimeters in barometric 2992, which is, we're going to level off here shortly at 13,000 feet. Then we'll continue with the arrival and descent preparation. But for now, we'll take a moment and relax at our hard efforts of taking off this 737 MAX aircraft. Not a MAX, I'm sorry, 737-800. So what's going to happen? Very shortly, usually around 800 to 1,000 feet, the aircraft's going to chime, and that's a standard 1,000-foot level off marker. On the multifunction display here, there's a top of climb indication, and further down the line, you can see the green top of descent, a T/D for top of descent indication. So now the aircraft's leveled off at 13,000 feet, and the automation is automatically reducing the throttle for us, because we're going to maintain a comfortable speed of 250 knots, 252 knots. And that just happens to be programmed. We've now transitioned from our climb power to our cruise setting, and that's programmed here. If you wanted to increase that to say 260 knots, you would just type in 260 knots. Okay. Punch that into there, and actually you can do that right now. 260 knots. Let's say air traffic control asks us, hey, can you guys speed up? We need 260 knots. 260 knots in there. The FMC asks you to execute that. Go ahead and execute that. And boom, 260 knots appears there.
Oh yeah, there we go. It's moving.
Auto thrust comes up for us.
Okay.
You got it. Okay. So now, we'll just do a little bit of setup, which I actually have done most of the setup on the ground. But I like to start from top to bottom when I'm doing the aircraft setup. So I just want to make sure that we're landing at sea level. And so that's actually says minus 50. I'll correct that and I'll just put that to 0 so that indicates sea level. First thing I want to do is I'm going to press my recall button, and you're going to press your recall button on the right side. Yeah. So if any one of these lights indicated on this panel when we released, we would have a problem with the aircraft, and we would go to that in particular panel and deal with that situation. But right now we've got a clear panel, nothing's wrong with the aircraft, so we're good to go. Okay, so let's just follow the checklist. Arrival programming. So we've done the cruise, we've set your power. If you hit the descent button, right there, it's giving you an option to set a descent speed, and if you hit the forecast button, it's giving you an option to put a whole bunch of descent winds, and that would affect our top of descent. If we were fighting a big headwind, our top of descent would actually be extended to be further, and we'd stay at cruise longer. If we had a big tailwind pushing us, the top of descent would come closer, and we'd have to start down a lot earlier. But we're not going to do that at this point in time. So if you just go to the departures and arrivals and JFK arrival page, and just go through these pages of approaches. If you hit next, and it's just going to indicate that we are doing the RNAV Yankee 1-3, so that's all set up. Okay, so now one thing is that the airplane's not going to let us descend until we put a lower altitude. So I see our top of descent is coming up. I'll simulate that New York Center has cleared us to 3,000 feet. So you're clear to go ahead and set 3,000 feet in the MCP altitude selector. Excellent. And now when we arrive at the top of descent, the aircraft knows that we've given it permission to descend from 13,000 feet down to 3,000 feet. All right. So now with the checklist here, we've looked at the forecast page. We've done the departure, arrival. We know that that's all set up. So if you hit your legs page, that pretty much just shows us that these are the points on the approach for runway 13, right? The descent preparation, that says to check our pressurization and our recall and an approach briefing. So we've done our approach briefing on the ground, and that would be looking and going over this Jefferson plate here, just talking about the approach, how we're going to go down to LNAV, VNAV minimums of 309, and we've got that set here on the barometric altimeter, 309, and I've got 309 over here. Our final approach course of 131 is set here. I've got 130, you've got 131, and I've got 131 here now. Perfect. All right. So that's the descent preparation. Now we're going to move on to the approach checklist here. That just calls for altimeters, and we've got 2992 inches set on the altimeters. We've got our minimums. We just talked about that. 309. Our inbound courses. We talked about that. 131. Now we need to choose the auto brake setting. So because this is the first time you've ever landed a 737, I would choose maximum. Maximum braking, just to make sure that we get stopped on the runway. It's not going to be a problem, but it's a good setting. And we're going to go to the init reference button here, and that's going to give us to our flap selection. We're going to land with flaps 30 today, so if you go ahead and hit that flaps 30 button beside once, that dumps it in the scratch pad. And if you go ahead and put it in this flap/speed, what that does is that actually puts that right on your display, and we note that that's done. So eventually, we're doing 252 knots. We're going to bring the aircraft down to a speed of 154 by slowly selecting the flaps as we arrive. All right, so we've got our auto brake, we've got our VREF, that's set. Nav frequencies, this is a GPS approach, so nav frequencies on the nav radios won't be required today. We need an approach clearance, so I'll simulate the New York Center. Says altitude flight sim, you're cleared for an approach into New York City. So on that note, as we go below 10,000, just so that all kinds of aircraft can see us, I get you to put on all those landing lights. Perfect. And except for that one.
Except for that.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we're going to leave that one last taxi light for our landing clearance.
Okay.
We've been cleared for the approach, but we haven't been cleared to land. And that's just our one last little indicator that helps us stay in the game. Perfect. Okay, so I'd say that's the approach checklist is complete. We'll complete the landing checklist a little further on down the line, closer to landing. Stow the checklist, and we'll make sure that everything's moving along nicely. We're not quite on this approach plate yet, but we are getting closer to JFK. And how we know that is if you hit your prog page, that's going to give you a total mileage. So right now we're showing 33 miles left before we get to JFK. Pretty good?
Okay.
Excellent. I'm going to take your station off. Nope, that should be fine. There you go. That's good enough.
So what's that white arm?
That is just indicating that your auto throttle is in fact armed right now.
Okay.
So this is basically called your FMA. This is your flight mode enunciations. And so anything we do up here on the automation panel has an effect down here. And as professional pilots, just so the other pilot that's not flying knows, we usually call out. When something happens here on this flight mode enunciation display, we usually call it out.
Okay.
So as you can see right now, we're flying in LNAV and VNAV. So that's why we've got an LNAV mode that's green. Green is active and white would be armed.
Okay.
So we're in VNAV path right now. And this is actually shows us that the flight management computer has programmed a constant descent at idle thrust. As you can see, we don't have much thrust on right now. So it's a very fuel efficient way to fly the aircraft in for an approach. We're essentially gliding down, and it's calculated that, and it's indicating that to us right now with that little open magenta diamond for a descent profile. That's an actual descent profile that it's got planned for us. And as we get closer, if you dial this in, that will get you zoomed. If you dial that a little bit to the one notch to the left, that will help you zoom in as we get closer to these points. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pull up the RNAV 13 Yankee approach. And there's a few numbers on here. So eventually we want to be down to about 2,000 feet inside VARAS. But we're going to let the computer has got that all figured out for us, to be honest with you. I'm going to go to the legs page.
So there's VARAS there.
Exactly. So I'm going to put your legs page. So these are all the points here. So that's VARAS. We're going next to. Anytime the point in the FMC is magenta, that's the point that we're going to. There's Veraz there, and that shows 7.6 miles.
Okay.
We're going through 6,000 feet, and it's showing that it's going to take care of everything for us. What I'm going to actually get you to pull out the speed brakes.
So
Yeah, go ahead and pull that.
Yep.
Yeah, and as you pull out the speed brakes, this magenta diamond gets us down, because we need to get down actually a little bit faster. So if go ahead and open up this, I'll get you to just, anytime you put out the speed brakes, always keep your hand on it.
Always keep
Yeah. So I'm just going to help you out. I'm going to open up the speed window, and I'm going to dial it down to 250. And I'm going to override the auto throttle, and I'm just going to help us get down a little bit. So we got the speed brakes out. We're speeded up. We're going to try to get down and slow down. Actually, I'm going to dial this down for you to about 230 knots right now. So basically, that green arc, we call it the banana bar or what have you will, that basically tells us that we're going to be down to that's where we're going to be down at 3,000 feet. So let's say ATC clears us for the approach. For this approach to work, what we're going to have to do is set 400 feet on the altitude selector. So if you could just do that now.
Okay.
Yep. Perfect. 400 feet on the altitude selector, hand back on the auto throttle, and you can stow the brakes in now.
Okay.
Yep. You can stow the speed brakes. I'm going to help speed up the airplane a little bit. I'm manually controlling the throttle.
Zoom in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would select flaps 1 if I were you.
And flaps 1.
So as you select flaps 1, you're going to see a little 1 appear there. And I want you to manually slow the speed down and put it right on that flap 1 selection.
Okay. So that's that diamond there.
Absolutely.
Little marker.
Absolutely. Now if you could go ahead and select flaps 5. The 5 is going to appear, and if you could actually slow the speed to the flaps 5 setting, that's going to work out perfect. I'm going to actually, get you to put out some brakes, because we are a little high and a little fast.
Okay.
The speed is coming back quite nicely. And once the speed stabilizes, I will re-engage the auto throttle. So there's the beautiful Manhattan, downtown New York area. If you look off to the left, you can see the Empire State Building, and you might see the Statue of Liberty just down there.
Yeah.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. So let's simulate that JFK. We've been switched over to tower, and tower's cleared us to land. So you can reach up here and select your landing button.
Okay.
Excellent work. Okay. So the speed's coming back nicely, and we're roughly progress page says wait now. So I'll go ahead and reach over, select the gear down. You can stow your speed brake. Reach over, select your gear down. Select flaps 15.
Flaps 15.
Go ahead and advise the flight attendants with your call button. Excellent. Now dial this back to your flaps 15 setting, and I'm going to re-engage the auto throttle. We'll just take a moment. There, we locked in. Perfect. Now you're perfectly stabilized. The aircraft is turning in from port to Vioni, flaps 15. Now, would you like to hand fly this approach, or would you like to take the automation, let the automation stabilize you first for a little longer?
Yeah, let it fly me up.
Okay, perfect. So right in front of you now, we're just turning on a JFK. There's 2 sets of lights, there's 2 runways. We're landing on the right side. That's the runway 13 right, closest to the water.
Okay.
So let's go ahead with the final flap configuration of 30.
30.
Excellent. Now slow to your final VREF speed. I'll pull that up for you here. As a reminder, it's flaps 30, 154.
154.
Typically, we add 5 knots onto that. So 154 plus 5 is 159. That's a good, safe speed.
Okay.
Okay. So now the aircraft is finally fully configured. I'm going to go ahead and do a landing checklist. We can do that together.
Okay.
Okay. So landing checklist says missed approach altitude. Well, we find that on the approach plate here, and that says missed approach altitude is 2,000. So inside for Vioni, the aircraft is going to continue down on this approach path. So you could go ahead now and set 2,000 feet for the missed approach altitude. Excellent. Okay, so we got Mr. Approach altitude 2,000 feet set. We got our landing gear. It's down. 3 green. Cabin alerted. We've alerted the cabin. Speed brake. Now go ahead and pull that speed brake just to the armed position until this green light comes on, and you let that go. It'll stay armed for the landing. Our flaps are 30 selected, 30 indicated green light. Our VREF, you've got set now, 159. Landing clearance, ATC clearance to land.
All right.
Landing checklist is complete. We're going to stow the checklist. You're going to look outside.
Okay.
You're going to turn the autopilot off, take control, and land the aircraft.
Okay.
So about 30 feet above the runway, I'm going to, actually one hand should be over here on the throttle now.
Okay.
About 50 to 30 feet above the threshold, you're going to disengage the auto throttle, pull it back to idle.
Okay.
So the aircraft just advised us that we've reached our minimums. It looks clear and safe to land. There's nobody on the runway. We've got our landing clearance. You're lined up perfectly.
Okay.
You're transitioning now to visual.
100. 50.
Let it come down. Let it come down.
Come down.
Drop your throttle. Just gauge.
40.
Yeah. Just go ahead and drop your throttle
All the way down.
all the way
30.
down. Using up a bit too much runway.
20.
Beautiful. Hold her steady right there. Touchdown. We got speed brakes. Go ahead and engage your reverse thrusters. And I see now reverse is green. We got our auto brake is actuating for us, stopping the aircraft. 360 knots, you can stow your reverse thrusters. And at any time, you can take over on manual braking. If you touch the brake pedals on your own, bring the aircraft to a stop. Manual braking, auto brake disarm. Congratulations, you just landed your 737-800.
Thank you very much.